Over at Marvel Comics, the current run of Amazing Spider-Man has a fascinating dark fantasy type direction that's caused a lot of fascinating spin-offs in recent memory for characters like Gold Goblin and Red Goblin. And now Marvel is looking to return to the dark web crossover, which saw the villainous benreilly character, a one-time friend of Spider-Man, go back and fight against his one-time friend. And one aspect of that series that we never quite got to see resolved was just what exactly happened to Ben's longtime love interest, Janine. My name is Arco Braddock, and today let's go ahead and dive deep into Hallows Eve #1 to see just where Janine kind of left off as Hallows Eve. But before we get deeper into the video, I want to go ahead and encourage you to consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that like button if you enjoy our contents. And I want to kick things off by sharing Marvel's solicitation text they wrote to introduce Hallows Eve over to readers. Spinning out of the Amazing Spider-Man, Hallows Eve gets her own series. Janine Godby's world has been blown up several times in her life, but this time she has a bag of superpowered masks and a chip on her shoulder. She's on the run from the police, but there's someone else after her too. Don't miss the breakout character break even bigger. And I want to go ahead and share the creative team behind Hallows Eve #1 from Marvel Comics. This one is written by Erica Schultz, illustrated by Michael Dowling, colored by Brian Reber, lettered by VC's Joe Caramagna, and we have a cover from the issue over from Michael Dowling and Mary Hollowell. Here's a look at the gorgeous cover over for Hallows Eve #1. I love how just kind of the cover itself does a fantastic job evoking that sort of, despondent and really kind of cold and calculated tone for the series. One of the things that I really enjoy that I think author Erica Schultz did was kind of imbue the same tone from recent Amazing Spider-Man issues and sort of inject it into the Hallows Eve narrative. So these pages are kind of brimming with subtext, filled with things that are sort of left unsaid for the character. And I really appreciate the way Michael Dowling draws Janine throughout this series. Janine is kind of a lost character who's been dealt such a bad hand over from Marvel during the years. And, at a time before this current run of Amazing Spider-Man, during the Beyond arc, it really looked like this was sort of the new start over for, Janine and Ben. But as sort of, this modern Amazing Spider-Man run with Zeb Wells and John Romita Jr. started, Janine and Hallows Eve went on, a darker and darker path. So it's fascinating here to kind of read this series because this is a really complicated series. It's not about a character who's necessarily a hero or a villain at this point, because Janine is sort of so morally conflicted and pulled in all these different dimensions. I mean, I really do think, based on, the characterization we've gotten for Janine in Dark Web, that if Janine was sort of like left to her own devices and, if Ben was not sort of manipulated by the Beyond Corporation, this character might actually be good. As you can imagine, there is just so much kind of, aspects lurking behind the scenes. And I really think that Erica Schultz, from a writing standpoint, just does a great job introducing the character. The way that Hallows Eve sort of takes these different masks on to change, her power set is just so well realized throughout this issue. There were some really kind of interesting hints at how, Hallows Eve used her powers during Dark Web, but I really love the fact that this issue sort of gave a platform to explore kind of what those powers actually looked like. And again, Michael Dowling is just such a great artist to go ahead and realize that. I love how, the pages are kind of more skeletal in their composition, but I think it allows for kind of your mind to wander and kind of, paint the kind of subtext or scenes happening between the panels or borders of panels as well. There's just so many kind of, great aspects about this issue. And I love sort of the way that Michael Dowling sort of inverts the 9-panel grid and kind of shake things up a little bit when the art calls for it. I think there's just so many enticing elements about Dowling, and I would love to see him kind of join the main Amazing Spider-Man series in pencil. Some more of those darker issues when the series called for it. And I think this book was kind of paced incredibly well. I feel like readers are just kind of interested in learning more about the Hallows Eve character. And it seems like Erica Schultz kind of continues to unfurl more and more information about the character, whether it be, how Janine feels about her current situation, whether it be a sort of like deeper dive into kind of an exploration of her character. One of the things about this debut issue that I really didn't expect to see was the inclusion of the Beyond Corporation kind of reintroduced into the story. I think the fact that Janine already personally has so many kind of ties to Beyond with what they did with Ben, the idea of reintroducing this plot point for Hallows Eve that sort of originated in the pages of the Amazing Spider-Man is why I love comic books so much. I love it when we can kind of use one series to kind of bridge to another, and when writers are able to kind of work with Marvel's editorial to connect some of those plot points as well. So I thought that that was really kind of one of the most enticing aspects of the series, and something that I think will really kind of carry a few more plot threads over from previous issues of Amazing Spider-Man in a really sort of like seamless and nuanced way over in this chapter. Finally, I did think the cliffhanger of the issue was interesting as we kept learning, more and more information about the lore behind how Hallows Eve's, essentially powers work throughout this issue. And again, whenever it kind of calls for an action sequence, I really like how Michael Dowling's, serious art can depict, these really insane monsters in these sort of like, nonsensical ways that adds a little bit of a great sense of humor to the issue that I really, really appreciated. So those were some of my thoughts over on Hallows Eve #1. I think Marvel's editorial has done such a wonderful job sort of expanding the nature of the Amazing Spider-Man franchise, and I really hope that the publisher is able to embark on another crossover where they, take existing characters, invert them with new powers, and then try them out essentially with new miniseries. I think this is such a great way to sort of like expand this character and also give a little bit more insight into a character like Janine, who's existed in the Marvel Universe for a very, very long time, but has never been sort of like fleshed out or explored in quite this way. So I want to know from you, what were some of your thoughts over on Hallows Eve #1? Did you like this series as much as I did? And what do you want me to go ahead and cover next? Thank you guys so much for checking out the video, and we'll be back really soon for more excellent comic book content. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon. Bye.